Welcome to Cloud.Nine on ACTN The Voice. I only heard that song this morning, but clearly it would have been recorded a while back because actually you would have saw Kes still with his dreads. And Devon Matthews was a part of that video. As you know, he has since passed on, and that would have been roughly about over a month now, thereabout. What I found very interesting about the song, when I looked at the song on Facebook, just a few pages that I saw actually had the song on it. And it's interesting that this song has not gone viral as yet, because we would be viral about all kind of what I would consider the viruses that come out of people's mouth and the toxic things about this country that comes out of our mouth, but we would not be viral about something like this. And we like to walk around like we're so pious, and you know, we as Trinis could do no wrong. And I'm making reference to the whole Dominica issue. And, you know, who from this island might do what to us. But I'm reading in the news coming to hand within the last half an hour, and the picture and the videos of all over Facebook, and I will not show it because I almost threw up my breakfast, and it wasn't much actually, where the bodies of two babies, believed to be twins, were found this morning at the Cloud.Nine landfill in a cardboard box amongst the garbage. Yeah. Facts are that officers of the Homicide Department in Couva CID, they are still on the scene. They were contacted at 7 a.m. Images of the babies show one with an injury to the head and the other with the lower body covered in a red cloth. Both bodies are fully developed, but it is uncertain if the children were still born, or stillborn rather, or died after birth. On August 22nd, a full-term baby girl was found in the Beetham landfill. This is where scavengers found the baby's body in a garbage bag shortly before dawn. And this is just a peephole into a gaping black hole that we are sinking as a people. You see the venom being expressed, as I said, on social media against each other, against our Caribbean neighbors, against our leaders, and the list goes on and on. But we pious. God is a Trini. Hurricane won't come here. I've told people time and time again, the day will come, God will migrate. And then I wanted to say God is a Trinity, because again, if we had stink and dirty, I say it. Yes, I say it. We all expect. Huh? There needs to be a heart of repentance. There needs to be some healing. And people need to start truly showing love. And that's why I'm saying that song should be on every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago wall, but it's not. I've gone through my homepage like about 10 times for the morning, and I have not seen that song. I have not seen that song. And we Trini, we sweet, we nice, but we're not going to humble ourselves and realize that we have a problem. We're not going to humble ourselves and realize that our heart is bleeding. There are angry people, hurting people, different things. And we do not want to admit that we have a problem. And we expect things to change. But we want to lash out at this one, and we're not checking our own heart. See the mote in your own eye before you. All right, so now that I've gotten an emotional rant out of the way, let's go to... Yeah, my guests are here. They're seeing me in my conduct this morning, but that's all right. Let's go to a wiser segment. I want to go to a clip from the Prime Minister's statement he made yesterday in response to those who have been against his statement about Dominica. Let's go to Wise Up now. Plain talk. Let's take a break. Actually, before we take a break, quickly, another very interesting news item here. The speed limit is set to change. Yeah. This is according to Works and Transport Minister Rohan Sinanan, who spoke to the Express on Tuesday. According to Sinanan, Cabinet has approved the increasing of the speed limit from 80 kilometers per hour to 100 kilometers per hour. He said last week Cabinet approved the recommendation. This is expected to be taken to Parliament by this Friday to be debated. I want to echo the sentiments of Arrival Live. The issue is not so much raising the speed limit, but raising the mindset and culture of our people. Because you can raise it to 100, to 120, to 240. People still drive reckless for various reasons. Some people are just angry and the driving is just a reflection of that erratic behavior. Some people have different... It's reflective of what's inside of them. Because some people drive beyond speed. They just drive stupid, right? Right? It's two very different things. And what I see more than anything else is reckless driving over speeding, right? So if we don't deal with the issues that people are experiencing in terms of as a nation, the stress that comes with it and different things, the speed limit ain't going to do much. It might just make things worse. Let's take a break.
The devil's the accuser of the brethren. And he hates marriage because marriage is the image of God. He hates marriage because it's the most sacred institution on earth. God created marriage in Genesis chapter 1. It is the first institution he ever created, and it's the foundation for every other institution on earth. And he's a strategist. He understands if he can destroy marriage, he can destroy all of society.
I found out that if our phones are close enough, and if we have a connection on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, come on, I'm about to preach this technology until somebody comes out of hiding. If I got something on my device and you need it on your device, if I can get close enough to your device with my device, what's on my device can jump on your device. If I get close to the one who created me, close to the one who called me, if I stop running and return to the place of my assignment, I got the drop.
So if you want to live behind walls all your life and live an isolated, lonely, miserable life, go ahead. But I suggest that you tear down all your walls and let God be a wall of protection about you. And he says all of your walls will be called peace.
All right, and welcome back. Let's go to our Let's Chat segment one time. We have a lot to discuss. All right. But it says PSA members want Duke out. This was last year, November 4th to be exact, 2016, right? Now, they say a picture tells 1,000 words. But if I were to show another very senior member of the PSA, this who I spoke to a few days ago, this picture might just tell one word: Duke. You know why I say that? Because he's of the belief, and I'm not going to call him, I'm going to respect his position. He's a believer, no matter what is done right now, because of the alleged underhandedness of Mr. Duke, he is going to win. There's a group that is saying that's not going to happen and the truth will prevail, and they are the United Public Officers. Let me welcome at this time the presidential candidate, Mr. Oral Saunders, and IRO candidate, Mr. Jude Davison, correct? Gentlemen, a pleasure indeed all once again. Thank you for coming. I said that because that is the view of some, that despite the majority, based on what you're saying, that, listen, they want to change. They want that sweet-smelling savor of PSA to return and not this toxic smell that some of them have been experiencing. Some are saying, and this is a senior man I spoke to, you know who it is? He's saying, you know what? He spoke to me on Sunday night. Saturday, sorry, he's like, you know what? I want that too, but because of the web that has been, you know, designed, it's difficult. Do you agree, or do you believe the time is right and the time is ripe for the picking and his days are numbered? Or do you believe that he's too much of a force to get rid of?
I have a pleasant good afternoon, my brother, and a pleasant good evening to your thousands of viewers. It's indeed an honor to be here, as usual. I would first want to strongly disagree with that individual that you would have spoken about, or spoken to, I should say, and simply respond by saying there was a young man in the Bible. His name was David. And persons thought that the dream that God had for him would have been impossible. And the rest is history. People never seem to believe in your dream because they are seeing things from the carnal eye, through the carnal eye, and they are not seeing really and truly what God has rested on your heart and what is your dream for a better public services association. And I've been in the PSA for over 20 years, actively in the PSA. And I do believe that this time around, we have succeeded in, first of all, building back solidarity amongst those persons who are opposed to Mr. Duke. And the sacrifices that I would have seen taking place by these various groups that were unsuccessful in 2013, I am very much encouraged, and I am seeing this election completely opposite. We are going to remove Mr. Duke, but this election goes much deeper than Mr. Duke. It goes against that type of spirit that Mr. Duke presents, because I'm not here to condemn Mr. Duke.
And what type of spirit is that?
And this is a spirit where it's me, myself, and I. What's in it for me? And it is not just the PSA. The PSA, to me, is a microcosm of the wider society. We see it with our politicians. We see it in various village councils, in various groups, in various religions. Persons are coming to the forefront because they simply see things as in what's in this for me. And this is really the spirit that we are up against. We believe that taking over the PSA is just the first stage in actually rebuilding the country, Trinidad and Tobago. I listened very carefully to what you were saying prior to us coming on air. And we do also share those similar sentiments, because, I mean, hearing some of the, or seeing some of the sentiments expressed on social media in regards to our Dominican brothers, this is what has been magnified. But I am holding firm to the view that the majority of Trinidad and Tobago citizens, we do believe that we appreciate the stance that, or the position that we are in. I mean, things are bad economically, but it's not that bad as what is happening to our brothers and sisters of the islands. And once we can help, we must help.
Where did things take a nosedive for the PSA? PSA was regarded as, you know, it was like a marriage, PSA and OWTU, in terms of the major bodies representing the majority of workers in Trinidad and Tobago. And, you know, it seemed as though somewhere along the line there was a weakening of the PSA. And now, from being a part of a marriage for the people, they have now been regarded by many as a bastard child. Because of, again, and this is not just about Mr. Watson Duke, this is about the entity itself, the PSA. Where did things start to go wrong? Because I don't think it's just Mr. Duke, in all fairness to him. Somewhere things, I don't know if Mr. Davison can jump in here with this too, as the you know, where did things go wrong? Because you represent so many people in this country, and this should not be the image that we're seeing of, that has been so, you know. So,
well, a pleasant good afternoon again.
Yes, same to you, sir.
As we discussing here this afternoon, I believe, as you asked the question, where we think things went wrong. I personally believe that PSA is governed by a constitution, right? And when, as a leader, fail to abide by the constitution, the laws and the rules of the constitution, everything falls down. For instance, if the prime minister of this country decide, listen, certain things that's supposed to happen, like Tobago supposed to get a certain percentage of funds to run their business every year in the budget, and if the prime minister decided not giving that, what would happen to Tobago? And this is what happened. The predecessors before Duke, they observed the Constitution. All the things that it was said that should be done in the Constitution, it was done perfectly, and this is why PSA was rated one of the best union in the country. You understand? Financially, we were strong. In all aspects, socially, in all aspects, we were strong. And because of this man coming in 2009, did not come through the ranks, is the only president actually did not come through the ranks of the PSA.
But how did that happen? So, okay, so based on what you're saying, it's the downfall, the D downfall started with Duke, right?
Yes.
But how, in terms of the Constitution, was there anything in place to avoid, because you say he didn't come through
well, when I say he didn't come through the ranks, right, he was a member of the PSA.
Right.
But he didn't, like how Oral, for instance, was a youth leader and come up through the ranks.
So he just came in and he was appointed.
He just came through.
All right.
And what we are trying to do now, even as we win this election, is to put checks and balance, go to conference, do certain things with the Constitution, where that this thing wouldn't happen again. It would not be easy.
Right, so there was no provision in the Constitution whereby someone could just...
a member.
A member.
President. Okay,
yes,
understood. Fair
so
enough.
these are things we want to look into, that it would not happen again.
History with the union.
You
and things that
understand?
would,
This year is this year is our Constitution.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's all right.
That's all right.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Right? And because of not honoring the Constitution, that Mr. Drew came in and actually believe he's the president and he could do what he wants, how we feel when he feel to do it. Look, for instance, right? Mr. Drew went to the media. He make arrangement to the media, right, to have a program on the media for $50,000 a month. He went and he arranged his business. Then he came to the General Council, which is the financial body of the union, to ratify all these financial dealings, and said that he made this arrangement. So I asked the question. I said, well, how comes you do that? And then you come to us before, which is, I am a member of the financial committee. Right. How comes you do that after the fact? Well, he decided to tell us after the fact. But you see, Mr. Duke is not PSA. PSA run by the Constitution, as I said, that the Constitution have certain laws in the Constitution whereby that you come to the financial body and say, well, listen, we are about to do this, and what you think if we have the funds? Well, we as the financial members would say, well, at this time we could accommodate it, or we could not accommodate it, as the case may be. But he just does things in this way.
Let me ask a question now. Unions are state entities is it?
No, they are not state entities.
So when can
membership organizations.
So when can the state get involved?
Well, that's an excellent question. That's what
I want to ask. When can the state? Because I'm thinking if let's say a president of, because the union, they're representing members of the public who work for the state.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So my question is, and this goes for any union.
Correct.
If a president or an executive member should go rogue, where now can the state step in to be a mediator, not necessarily to penalize and to send to jail, but when can they come in and say, listen, let's mediate here and come to some sort of decision, or it cannot be done?
Excellent question, Sheldon. Yeah. The union, as I stated before, is a membership organization.
Right.
And all unions function under legislation, a part of law, which falls under what is called the Trade Unions Act. In the Trade Unions Act, there is a post called Registrar of Trade Unions. And that individual is supposed to be that counterbalancing figure that you alluded to mitigate in circumstances similar to what my comrade would have mentioned in regards to the lack of accountability. And unfortunately, when we were at our worst end in somewhere around 20, well, every year since Mr. Duke has been there has been disastrous. But you may recall when we made overtures for that person to step in, because I myself wrote to the registrar at the time. And surprisingly, there was no registrar. There was no one serving in that post. Because I think the person only gets, when we did some further checks and investigations, that person only receives a stipend of approximately 5,000 or less under the Office of the Attorney General. So there was no person in place to make sure that we do what we are supposed to do. So you could understand now why Mr. Duke continued to be on this runaway train that just was out of control, because all the state checks and balances, all the internal checks and balances, because what actually transpired, because many people, when we go to speak to them, they speak about, well, how could these things be taking place? And it all began, as Comrade Jude alluded to, when persons deviated from the Constitution. Separate and apart from persons deviating from the Constitution, what Mr. Duke's appointed General Secretary did was to suspend all the legitimately elected persons of the General Council that they met in office when we won the elections in 2009. So what transpired is that the then General Secretary wrote to all the permanent secretaries in the government saying, listen, Oral Saunders is not entitled or has been revoked from being a member of the General Council. His time off has been revoked. Please observe these instructions. And what simply happened is that those HR departments, those permanent secretaries who received the document just followed the instructions, and everything from that point onwards was just downhill, and we were just gaining momentum as we were heading towards that precipice.
Many times I've noticed Mr. Duke, you know, various bargaining committee meetings whereby he will be signing off, and he says that, you know, they would have won this case and won that case. You see him lobbying for workers, and, you know, they're getting this. No, this is what you're seeing. This is what when the media is called to cover. And he said they had a victory or victories, and you would have seen, listen, they got 5% here, 3%. So what are we seeing? Because people are, some saying, you know what? There seems to be some sort of level of good leadership on his part, whereby people are getting increases, whether how small it may be.
Yes.
So how do you respond to that?
Well, I would say those were never celebrations, to be quite honest, Sheldon. In fact, it was total anarchy that led to Mr. Duke signing off on that said 5% that you are talking about. Because, you see, we are talking about accountability, and we are talking about processes based on the Constitution, which is our ultimate and supreme authority. And any president that is sitting in the PSA, we knew presidents followed this document, unlike Mr. Duke, because if it is the chief personnel officer, who's the office that represents the government during negotiations, and the Mr. President, then Mr. Duke, was saying, we will not accept the 5%. But yet he turned around and went and signed on that 5%. What process did he adopt in accepting that 5%? Because this document speaks about the financial committee that Comrade Jude was a part of most recently. A president who would have gotten that, because I would have been a part of the negotiating committee under the former president, Mrs. Jennifer Baptiste Primus, and she never, ever would have done what Mr. Duke did, even if it was to accept the said 5%. The bottom line is this: she did not have the legal authority to go and sign off on any package deal on behalf of public officers without getting the authority to do so. So she would have met with her executive to discuss the situation, met with the negotiating committee, met with the General Council, and hold a special conference to discuss the matter with the membership, and then get the authority to go and sign for or against. And that is the process that this document speaks about. Mr. Duke is alien to this document, hence the reason why he continues to get into problems with the membership.
So I guess you're saying because of the economy that we're in, and because of how people are just really in a place where they are looking for some sort of stability and some sort of reassurance that, you know, he's feeding them chicken feed when they deserve chicken, basically.
Well, I wouldn't want to say that, because the circumstances that existed in that agreement, we know for a fact that oil prices were in excess of $100 per barrel.
But there were others that took place after, other negotiations.
Right, but remember, everyone has to be, see, we are talking about process. Now, the economical situation that exists today is a far cry for what happened in that 2010-2013 collective agreement. Understood. So as I said, it was the oil prices were $100 in excess.
And it was unfair to the workers,
right.
yeah.
So it was unfair for the workers to accept 5% because the economy clearly could have could have facilitated more. And now that the situation where oil prices are even, it's so volatile that 1 minute it is above what we budgeted and next minute it's below. So we have to treat with the issues as it come.
So which means back then the PSA had an opportunity to create a very large safety net for their members for these hard times ahead.
Of course.
What's before the table right now?
As it stands?
Yeah, anything before the table right now that for workers in terms of negotiations?
Well, as we see, there is nothing before the table.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, even as Comrade Oral was talking about in respect to the 5%. Now, other unions got 9 at the time when we got 5, if you remember that. Yeah. And then he came back and he get 5%. 4%, sorry. Yeah. He came back and he get 4. You know,
bring it up to the 9.
Which he say it came up to the 9. But that 4% really wasn't doing anything to your gratuity and your pension.
But it was already split.
It was just a one-off something. Yeah. So, you know, he went about and banter himself and make people believe, well, we end up getting the 9. You see, we get the 9 now, and in the long run, that ain't doing nothing when you're about to retire.
But comrade, let me just quickly add to that. You know? And what is the joke? The funniest thing about that is that Mr. Duke did not negotiate for that 4%, you know. What happened is in the a former PSA executive back in the 80s, the 1980s, they signed an agreement with the government in regards to relativity, because you may or may not be aware, monthly paid officers, we are supervisors for daily paid workers. So when the daily paid union got the 9% as opposed to our 5%, that law of relativity came into existence. And we were now in a position as a union to go back to the CPO to say, but listen, we can't be getting less money than the persons whom we supervise. So that is, as Comrade Jude rightfully said, he went celebrating that, but that was not something to celebrate, because that was a clear example of his lack of intellectual capacity to negotiate what was in the best interest for our members at the time, especially when you juxtapose it to the prevailing economic situation that existed. So we are saying that we are trying to rebuild our union to where it ought to be based on the Constitution, which is the supreme authority, and for us to even grow our union to leaps and bounds in comparison to the situation that exists. Our union is totally decimated, as Comrade Jude alluded to. All systems, the youth arm doesn't exist, the women's arm, the male caucus, the HIV/AIDS committee doesn't exist. There is absolutely nothing. The PSA does not even send a greeting of solidarity to the labor movement.
I remember the youth arm.
Yes, of course. I was the chairman of the youth arm. So we had several systems. We had Queen Pageant, we had 5K run and walk. All of these things. We used to even have a children Christmas party every December, the PSA. Since Mr. Duke's advent, every single system has fallen apart. So I am not here to say that Mr. Duke and Mr. Duke alone must go, but his entire system of leadership, we refer to it as Dukeism. We want that completely out of the PSA.
Oh my God.
We want it out.
The amount of nicknames Mr. Duke have received over the last couple months alone, I don't have enough fingers to say. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going to go a little deeper into the vision of the United Public Officers. Again, they are the team of members who are going, full speed ahead, as they say, to bring back some sort of love and unity within the PSA. We'll be right back.
I found out that if our phones are close enough and if we have a connection on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, come on, I'm about to preach this technology until somebody comes out of hiding. If I got something on my device and you need it on your device, if I can get close enough to your device with my device, what's on my device could jump on your device. If I get close to the one who created me, close to the one who called me, if I stop running and return to the place of my assignment, I got the drop.
So if you want to live behind walls all your life and live an isolated, lonely, miserable life, go ahead. But I suggest that you tear down all your walls and let God be a wall of protection about you. And he says all of your walls will be called peace.
Back, and this is for the benefit of our evening viewers at 6. You can send us your comments in relation to our discussion today with members of United Public Officers. They will return, I'm sure. You know, they'll respond to your questions because, you know, that's a repeat. So you can send your text messages to ACTN The Voice, and that's our Facebook page, even our Cloud.Nine page as well. We have a number up on the screen as well, 652-4855. And we're going to continue discussing more in detail about the actual entity, United Public Officers. Why the name?
I came up with this name after deep conversations and consultations with various stakeholders. For those persons who aren't aware, many of those teams that were opposed to Mr. Duke in 2013, they have come together. I'm talking about teams like Pioneers, Reformers, Team Phoenix, Rebuilders, Defenders, so many persons, plus individuals who are former executive officers. We all recognize where we would have gone wrong because the membership actually spoke out in 2013, you know. And this is how I could dispel your original statement, because statistically, more persons voted against Mr. Duke as opposed to those who would have voted for him.
But the split.
Yes, the split is what caused it, and he was the happier person. Every time he heard a new group was coming out, he would celebrate and run rings, catapulting all over the office because he knew his victory was imminent. And even you and I had that discussion. I remember I wasn't that attached to any team back in 2013, but I did state to you that technically there's a possibility he could win, and I think he exploited that. We have learned our lesson because the members had been crying out from since then.
So there are less groups now.
It's not only that it's about less group, but yes, to answer the answer is yes. However, these groups have come together.
Okay,
and I want to commend the leadership of those groups for denying themselves and sacrificing, in most instances, persons' personal ambitions and goals in the greater good for the public service and because of what is at stake. So we would have come together and we had very frank discussions about Mr. Duke's tenure. We even had frank discussions about each other. Yeah. Because we weren't best of friends, but what we recognize is that, listen, Jude, what is important to you, Oral, what is important to you at this time is not important to the membership. The membership wants solidarity. They want unity. Right. And we came up, well, we needed something united. And because we were public officers, we say, well, that is the only obvious name to put. So we call ourselves the United Public Officers.
Well, so differences put aside for the hope for the betterment of the organization. And what are some of the, you know, I'm looking at a list of, what are some of the core values or the core issues that you would like to address as well as make as a part of the foundation?
Yes, definitely.
Of, you know.
But I would just, we have an acronym, we call it FACE-OFF, and it speaks about financial viability, accountability, competent leadership, effective representation, training and development, and organizational growth. So I seen that Comrade Jude, and I made sure I worked with a comrade who was a part of the Watson Dukes finance committee. So I would allow my comrade to talk about accountability.
These are some of the things we want to restore back to our great organization, accountability. Right now, as it stands, there is no accountability in the PSA. None whatsoever, none. It's like just a runaway train just doing whatever he wants. I want to voice some of the things that we could deal with right now. For instance, we as a car, there were 2 cars we bought, right? The arrangement really is supposed to sell one of the car, and the money from which you sell that car, you buy the other car. It doesn't make sense. We have one president and we have one car, and then we bought another car. So what we decide that, but he as the president, he overruled and decided he will keep both vehicles.
Which stands today?
Which stand today. Okay. And here what's going on with the vehicle presently now, the PCP, 89.
Which is a 5-star,
which is a
5 Series BMW.
5 Series BMW, right? Now, that vehicle supposed to be sold. We didn't sell the vehicle. We buy a BMW or
a Mercedes-Benz.
A Mercedes-Benz, as the case may be, right? Now, about 7 months ago, the vehicle was valued for $300,000, right? That is the PCP 89.
That's the first one.
That's the first one. A few weeks ago, we was told that the vehicle have $200,000 worth of repairs to do.
Wow.
We cannot say how that came about.
Wow.
Right? I asked the question in the financial committee, how that come about? You know? He said that certain things need to fix in the vehicle.
But
and
when those vehicles have a particular time, they have to go back for servicing and so forth?
Right. Yeah. This is what we know. So what we said in the financial committee, I said in particular, Comrade Chair, bring the vehicle here. We could validate the position of the vehicle, see what to fix, carry it by certain people, as the case may be, or backed by the dealers and get whatever on it, right? That was not done. After, we are hearing the situation now where the vehicle is valued $100,000. From $300,000 in 7 months. Now it value $100,000. Now, it was alleged that a family member of his crashed the vehicle, and this is how all the expense
alleged.
Alleged. Right? A family members crashed the vehicle. And this is how the thing...
Yeah, but that's a huge drop.
Well, this is what I am saying, that accountability is one of our hallmarks right now. And Mr. Duke seems to be a fella who accountability is not in his mind, it's not a part of him. And these are some of the values we want to bring back into the PSA. For instance, Duke took a buyout from his leave, 40 days vacation leave. In that buyout, it cost something like $89,268. This was the buyout. And at the time Duke took the buyout from his leave, right? Duke was campaigning in Tobago. Now, if there is a buyout, right? The service buyout your leave because of the exigency of the service, right? You should be on the job working for the company, not campaigning in Tobago. So we are seeing here where the guy is very dishonest. There is nothing like accountability in the mind of Duke.
Just to stick up in for a second here, in terms of the Constitution.
Yes.
I know this came up when he won the postal minority leader.
Yes.
About holding the two positions, which he says that he will hold.
Yes.
In terms of the Constitution,
right?
Is that yea or nay?
Well, the Constitution is silent in regards to that matter.
And I guess these are the things that you want to...
No, well, but at the end of the day, any Constitution, even the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, could never cover every single possible situation that could ever happen.
Right.
Hence the reason why wherever the Constitution is silent, the General Counsel is supposed to make such an interpretation.
So the position, I think, for most of the council was that step down from an ethical perspective, more so than anything.
That is what, I want you to predicate that decision against what I mentioned before, where persons who were legally and legitimately elected to office were removed and persons were now selected to be in the General Counsel. So every single decision that Mr. Duke would have made from that point onwards, he could stand up and say, the General Counsel authorized this, the General Counsel, but we know, because we are wiser, who represents the General Counsel, who are the persons who comprise of the General Counsel. So hence the reason why he can say something like that. But the reality is there has been absolutely no accountability, because we would have, when we won the election in 2009, we would have gotten from the former administration in excess of $7.5 million. And if you can recall, about 2 to 3 weeks ago, the staff of the PSA was seen marching on the steps of the PSA. They were protesting because they have been saying this is roughly the 3rd month that they have not been paid on time. And our information is the PSA is in such a financial rut at this time that they have to wait until dues come into the organization before they could pay salaries. And that's a very, and we have the documentation for that. As I said, I worked with someone who was what I would like to call a sleeper cell inside of the General Council, observing everything that was taking place with Mr. Duke. So when we come out and make these bold statements, it's predicated against factual information. So that accountability is a thing of the past under Mr. Duke's tenure. And I don't know if it is because he didn't come through the ranks, understanding that at the beginning of every financial year, you present a budget which has to be passed by the conference of delegates.
It's a very startling figure.
Exactly.
I will just leave it at that. I can't say anything.
You understand? So when the conference agrees to a budget, it means that the executive must function within that budgetary allocation, similar to what happens in the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago. What Mr. Duke has done is decimated the entire 7.5 million, so to speak, roughly, because he does not work within a budget. He just sees it at 7.5 million, and whatever I need to do, I just use it, whatever we need to buy, because as Comrade Jude alluded to, the traditional prudent thing to do is, if it is that the vehicle that is assigned to the office of the president has reached its age for it to be sold, we normally, because as I said, I worked with Mrs. Batiste Primus in the past, what she would normally have done is to ensure that the old vehicle would have been sold before purchasing a new vehicle, so that that dip into the finances of the organization doesn't take place so drastically and radically.
You can
continue. Go ahead.
In the era of
a few minutes before we close.
Right? This really is our old one. Right?
Yeah, I'm seeing that. Yeah.
But this is how it used to be. In the era of accountability, as we look at legal fees for the month ending August 31st, 2016, right? Our legal fees look something like $456,997,000. Right? We have also the charges in the Tobago affairs inside of this, where I don't know if you remember when Mr. Duke went to the House Assembly in Tobago, the THA building, and they told him that they're about to close, they cannot accommodate him now, and he was charged, right, for trespassing. The total legal cost for that trespassing charge so far is $388,000.
Which comes out of the
coffers of the PSA. This is why I'm emphasizing on accountability.
Yes.
And we need to restore this back to our great organization.
Gentlemen, just about a couple minutes, just about a minute or so before we close, I really want to thank you for coming. Please, when it's closer to the election, please come again.
Sure, thank you.
We will have a even deeper discussion, but just a minute or so just to speak to the membership of the PSA as to why they should cast their vote for the United Public Officers. So within a minute, so go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I want to say to all the members of the PSA, it is important for you to vote the United Public Officers, because you all ask us to unite as a people. We come together as a union and we unite because we realize this is the way forward. It is said in the scriptures that united we stand, divided we would always fall. And we decide to unite to take back our union from the hands of Mr. Duke and Dukeism, and to take our union forward, that we could enjoy a happier life as public officers or public workers.
Oro?
In addition to what my comrade would have alluded to and would have definitely stated, this goes much deeper where I am concerned. I believe that what we would have seen taking place at the PSA, as I said before, is a microcosm of the wider society. It's when persons put themselves ahead of really what their true purpose is, which is really to serve mankind. We are supposed to help each other. And that is really what the tenets of trade unionism speaks about. It speaks about solidarity. Our union needs an immediate overhaul in terms of accountability, in terms of competent leadership, training, development, organizational growth. We, the United Public Officers, we commit to delivering this, because we would have gotten a leadership council comprising of persons of those various teams. And those persons are former executive officers, former permanent secretaries, and they are going to be leading us as we come together to ask you to come and join us. And we are asking you tonight, come out and join us. We must restore respectability, we must restore, we must rebuild, we must revive our union. Join us, the United Public Officers. Follow us on Facebook to find out more about things that we weren't able to discuss today, but join us on Facebook and see what the United Public Officers has in store for public officers.
And in terms of the, as we kind of bring down the curtain on the program this afternoon, in terms of the membership of the PSA, how many people would you say you all are representing in the country? Average?
Based on the finances of the organization, we can see it's roughly about 16,000. A big drop compared to when Mr. Duke came into office.
How much it was then?
It was in excess of 18, almost 20,000. Yeah. And this is what we are asking public officers to do. Even if it is, you are to look at this thing in a very neutral point of view. Any leader that is in charge of an organization for over 8 years and has failed to increase its membership, the finances is decimated. The respectability the organization once had when he assumed office no longer exists. Can that leader now come to promise you or ask you to give him another 4 years to do what he couldn't do in 8 years? It doesn't make mathematical sense. We are saying we have seen enough. We want to restore that pride that public officers used to have in our organization and within the wider society. We want to stand up for you in your time of need, because we have been seeing it. Persons have been coming to us repeatedly. They have grievances. They have gone to the PSA. No one dare to take their grievances. When you ask for someone, they're saying they're out of the country. Mr. Duke is not here, as if Mr. Duke is the organization. Yeah. We have seen lawyers taking over the role of the PSA, as although the PSA's grievance handling mechanism has been outsourced to lawyers. So if it is that lawyers are handling the grievances of the PSA, then there is no need to have an executive anymore. And we are saying this is not the purpose of what our forefathers, in terms of the builders of this constitution and those who would have labored to bring the PSA to what it was prior to Mr. Duke. Mr. Duke and his cohorts have done no service to us and the efforts that we would have done to build this union. We will rebuild this organization together. We need your help.
Saunders, thank you very much,
thank
sir.
You,
as
brother.
always.
Comrade.
Davison, thank you very much for coming.
You,
and again, when is the election? Quickly, as you close.
It's on November 27th. This year, 2017.
So we have more time to debate and raise some more bacchanal.
Sure.
You know, let's thank you for joining us on Cloud.Nine today on ACT and The Voice. I'm Sheldon Yearwood. Have a blessed afternoon. We'll see you again tomorrow, God's willing.